I'm your host, Rachel. I help teens be motivated and positive in life. In this channel, we're gonna talk about life, and I'm here to help you grow and change your mindset into positive. If you have a minute, share this in your stories and tag me, or share this with your friends. I would love to know how it helped you in your life journey. You may follow me on Instagram at allaboutchubby. Enjoy this episode. Hey there, welcome to Laugh Talk. I hope you're having a wonderful day. So for this week's episode, we are going to talk about something that is so important, and that is don't start the flame if you can't handle the fire. Now, before we start, let me first ask you a question. Have you made a decision before that affected you in a negative way and you blamed yourself? Now, you may share this question with your friend by your side or your coworker, so you may share your answers to each other. So, good morning. Based on my question just a few seconds ago, have you made a decision before that affected you in a negative way and you blamed yourself? Now, of course I ask this because this has something to do with our topic for this week. This topic is about decision making. This topic is about the things that hurt you or the things that affect you in a negative way. But why am I talking about this? Why does it affect you in a negative way? Because most teenagers nowadays have mental illness. Even if we don't admit it, most teenagers nowadays deal with mental illness. It could either be depression, anxiety, and a lot more. And because of that, since we are dealing with mental illness, it could affect our whole lives. It could totally affect our whole lives. Because it could affect the way we act, the way we do things, the way we treat ourselves, and the way we treat our lives, the way we make decisions. And by that, since we are not on ourselves, our mind is negative. And if our mindset is negative, it could affect the way we treat our lives. It could also affect us negatively. That is why for this week's episode, we are going to talk about this, because this is very important in our lives. For this problem, it happens in every aspect of our lives, whatever your problem is. But for this episode, we are going to talk about just 4 categories or 4 aspects in your life. Let's break it down one by one for you to understand it way more easier. First, friendships. Now why? Why am I putting friendships in the first place? Because we spend most of our time together with our friends, right? That is why it could totally influence you positively or negatively. It could affect you positively or negatively. It depends on what kind of friends you have in your life. That is why this is important, because I want you to be aware of yourself. I want you to be aware of your decisions in life. Now in friendships, there could be a lot of subcategories for this. Decision makings, saying things, or doing things on your friends. But first, let's talk about decision making. For example, I'm happy at this moment. And since I'm happy at this moment, seems like I want to be friends with them. Without thinking, without analyzing, without identifying if they would be good friends for me. Do you get me? That's what usually happens for teens like me. Because teenagers love to fit in, right? And that could lead to the way we fit ourselves to a group of friends. We depend our decisions based on our current emotions. For example, I am happy at this moment, and if I want to be friends with them, even if I don't know them, then I will make friends with them. And if that day came that we became friends, I just realized that they're not a good friend for me. They're not good for my mental health, for my physical health, in every aspect of my life. And I made the wrong decision. I just realized that I made a wrong decision. Because I did not think at the first place. I did not analyze if this would be a good idea for me. This usually happens for teens like me. Because we make decisions without thinking, without analyzing, without self-reflecting. Self-reflecting is very important before we make decisions. Because if you made a wrong decision, for example, that entering that kind of friendship, then it would affect you negatively. It could affect your whole life. That is why before entering a group of friends or leaving a group of friends, you gotta self-reflect first. Ask yourself, is this really what I need? Or am I depending my decision to my current emotions? That is important. Now next, saying things or doing things on your friends. Now because since we are depending our decisions on our current emotions, we don't realize what we say or what we do because what we see is just our current emotions. For example, happiness, and that's the only thing I see at that moment. I only see happiness. I can't see my doings, or I can't see the things that I say to my friends. That is why it is important to self-reflect or to be aware of yourselves every single time. Before you say something, self-reflect or ask yourself, am I on myself right now before I say this thing to them? Why? Because it might hurt them. We say mean things without even realizing it. Next, relationships. Big word. Now, why am I talking about relationship? Because teenagers love to have relationship, and because of that, we don't realize what we do. We don't realize the decisions that we are making in our lives because we are not on ourselves. We are just depending on our current emotions. We must never forget that entering a relationship is not a joke, and it will never be a joke. That is why I want you to realize that before you enter a relationship with someone, you gotta make sure that that is really what you want for the rest of your life. Not just at that time, not just depending on your current emotion. You gotta self-reflect first. Why? Because by entering a relationship without thinking and without self-reflecting, you could hurt that person. And you could not only hurt that person, you could also hurt yourself. And by that, you made a wrong decision again. See, you made a small decision that became a big problem in your life. And what happens? Most teenagers can't handle it anymore. That's why we get depressed, or that's why some of us tend to commit suicide because of problems. Before you enter a relationship, you gotta self-reflect first. Same goes by leaving a relationship. Just because a problem happens doesn't mean you have to leave your relationship already. Same thing if you are having an argument with your partner. You have to be aware of yourself on what you say on your partner, what you do to your partner. Because again, you could hurt that person. And by hurting that person, you could also hurt yourself. Next, family. Now for these, we also have decision making, hurting someone, saying things, doing things, or leaving a family. Before you make a decision within your family, you have to be aware of yourself. You have to self-reflect first if that decision could affect them positively or negatively. Because family is important. It is our home. And next, hurting a family member of yours. Before you hurt a family member of yours, you gotta think first if it's necessary. Not just to family, but to every one of us. If you hurt someone, whether you're a stranger or not, you're also hurting yourself. Same goes with having an argument with your family. You have to be aware of yourself on what you say or what you do in your family. And last thing, living your family. Just because a problem happens doesn't mean you have to leave your family or you have to abandon them. Last but not the least, of course, is yourself. The most important one. You yourself. How do you treat yourself? How do you make decisions? What are the things that you say on yourself? These are all important. Before you do such a thing on yourself, you have to self-reflect first again, because it could be a bigger problem. It can just make the situation worse. For example, I'm having a breakdown, or my depression suddenly attacks me at the wrong time. And since it is depression, we are aware of self-harm, right? So Since I am depending on my current emotions, which is sadness or pain, that's the only thing I see at that moment. And because of that, I will do negative things. Why? Because my mindset at that moment is negative, and not just my mindset. This is negative, this is negative, my actions would be negative. I think negatively, I would say negative things, I would do negative things. That is why before you make a decision, before you hurt yourself, you have to self-reflect. You have to be aware on yourself first. Because you are not on yourself at that moment. You are not you at that moment. There could be a lot of things, again, for this. Decision making, the way you deal with your problems, and entering something without thinking. Think first before you decide. Reflect before you decide. Because you could not only affect yourself, you could also affect a lot of people. So for this title, we have don't start the flame if you can handle the fire, right? So what does it mean? It means that don't start a small decision if you can't handle a big problem. Because if you will start in small decisions without thinking, it could be a bigger problem and you cannot handle it anymore. So take note of that. Whenever you are in pain, whenever you are having an anxiety or you are under pressure or confused or whatever you are feeling, take note of this. Don't start a flame if you can't handle a fire. Because by thinking of this or by remembering this, it could save your life. It could save you from making a wrong decision. It could save you from blaming yourself. Because if you made a wrong decision, of course, you would blame yourself, right? And by blaming yourself, it could affect you mentally. It could just make your depression or anxiety worse. It could make your mental illness worse. Do not start with small decisions that you know could be a bigger problem, because you know to yourself that you cannot handle it. That's it for this week, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode and I hope you have learned something new. Make sure to share this with your friends so that they can also learn from what you have learned from this episode. And please do remember that you can also download this episode in all podcast platforms. The links are down below. So you can listen to it whenever you want or whenever you want, even if you're jogging, running, walking in the street, driving, whatever you're doing in life. So what are you waiting for? Hit that download button beside this episode in all my podcast platforms. Have a great day and love you. Ay, yung question pa pala. As I end this episode, I want you to self-reflect. I want you to ask yourself at this exact moment. Have you started a fire before that affected you in a negative way?